Chelvan, good afternoon to you. So there it is, really. I mean, it's summed up. The judge said he had a sort of vague sympathy with the case of trafficking, but actually it's been fully dismissed. End of. And the correct decision.
Well, we'll never fully know, because one of the important things that your viewers may not know is that this 413-paragraph judgment, 76-page judgment, it's only half the story. Because in Special Immigration Asylum Commission cases, it's only the open judgment, which the general public get to read. There's also a closed judgment where not even Shamima Begum or her lawyers would be able to know the reasons for the full dismissal of her appeal. That's because of the national security and evidence which the Commission will hear under a closed session.
So who would know that? Presumably the judge. The Home Secretary would know that. The Prime Minister might know that, but it's a select group, right?
Yeah, that's special advocates. So what's really important about this case is that we know, and this is from Gareth Peirce's evidence to the Commission, that there are 700 to 900 individuals who went to Syria as part of ISIL and have returned back. And there's been no evidence that any of those have caused national security concerns, and that was in the open session of the court. The Commission then heard further evidence in the closed session regarding more statistics, and we'll never know about that issue. But the important thing about this is that Shamima Begum had been Mary Brown from Brighton, who had never had any ancestry links to any country outside the UK. This case would never got to the Commission because she would have returned to the UK.
Why?
Because the reason is that we can't exclude British nationals and render them stateless. The reason why the Home Secretary has been able to enforce the decision is that the Home Secretary argued that she has links through her parents.
Oh, the dual nationality thing.
Yes, but she hasn't got it yet, but she could apply. So that's why they're not rendering her stateless. So we know that 700 to, these figures was, 700 to 900, this paragraph 365 of the judgment, individuals have gone to Syria and returned back. But we also know, and this is a very important point, is that the Commission accepted that as a child, she was trafficked for the purposes of sexual exploitation for ISIS. So we have a teenager. We know that the UK did not prevent from being trafficked for use of sexual exploitation in ISIS. So that's a very important finding, and that's why even the lawyers...
Did the judge not say there was a credible case that she might have been trafficked?
Yes, and that's enough.
OK. Many people would suggest that became a very helpful additional defence that was added at a later date, never talked about before. She never referenced it in previous interviews, never came up with that.
Victims of trafficking, victims of trafficking don't start their case by saying, by the way, I'm a victim of trafficking. I mean, I think we need to be...
Well, when you're giving an interview, declaring your innocence or your naivety or your gullibility, whatever, you might at that point, and she's given a few of these interviews, you might think that will be the point you'd say, look, this all began because I was trapped. That was never said. She talked about going there of her own volition.
Victims of trafficking don't start a conversation by saying, I'm a victim of trafficking.
Well, you might not start it like that, but if you're having a conversation trying to convince the world that you shouldn't be where you are, then at some point you might mention that.
I don't know of a single case where individuals have, as a victim, start saying, I'm a victim of trafficking and therefore I should be defended. This is a...
Why would you not mention that? Sorry, if you're mentioning everything else, she's saying, look, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have been there, I saw beheadings, I saw terrible things.
But that's irrelevant. The Commission today, in their judgment, have accepted that there's a credible case. But the point is, let me make it quite clear, and I want to be very clear to your viewers, that our security forces do an amazing job. We know that there have been various instances which could have affected the well-being of this nation, which have been stopped because of our security services. So I want to make that very clear.
That's good. But why should from a legal perspective, or from your perspective, Chelvan, why should this girl be back in the UK facing trial, given that she made a very conscious decision? I don't think many people are sold on the trafficking thing. That probably...
it doesn't matter whether they're sold. The point is the Commission accepts that. That's a...
Well, yes, if you join ISIS, then being a sex slave as a female kind of goes with the territory, sadly. So I'm not disputing that is the upshot. But her motivation for going there in the first place was to join a death cult where she knew that terrorism and anti-West sentiment was...
A child cannot voluntarily...
Well, she was 15. She was 15.
That's a law.
Okay,
you can't volunteer as a child to be trafficked.
I'm not but what at the time was she trafficked?
Yes,
was she seduced into a new life?
No, that was the finding of the commission, that she, as a child, you cannot volunteer to be trafficked. That's the law. So therefore, she was groomed, and that's the issue, is that she's British. But remember this, it's very important, that there's a lot of part of this judgment, the closed judgment, that you and I will never see. But this, as the lawyers have said, this is not the end of the road. They've already been appeals to the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court on preliminary issues. I'm sure this will go the full way and maybe even go to the European Court of Human Rights. But it's very important that I make it quite clear that, as somebody who believes in the national security of this country, that this is, as the Commission says, a finely balanced case. But what is also important is that, but for the fact that her parents had a route to Bangladeshi nationality, not her, there was this route, we would not be having this conversation. Be Shamima Begum, like the 700 to 900 who've returned from Syria, who are in this country, who are British, have not been excluded. And the reason why that's important as an immigration context is that anybody like me or a lot of your viewers who had any links through our heritage, not directly, but through our heritage to another country, run the risk of
lots of people. I'm pretty sure, and you can put me right on this, Chelvan, but I would imagine that quite a lot of, you mentioned hundreds of other people that have been out there and come back.
They come back.
I would imagine quite a lot of those people would have had cultural links with other countries.
Well, if they had, they would have had, especially after this, with these Home Secretaries. And remember, Mr. Javid, who was the Home Secretary, never actually filed any evidence to the Commission. So I understand that from your report that he's very happy with the decision, but he never actually filed his evidence. And importantly, the Commission said that that's not relevant to the findings of fact. But importantly, if any of them had dual national or routes to dual nationality, I'm not a betting man, but I'm somebody who's been in this area for over 20 years, they would have been exercised their routes. So it's very important that your viewers know that 700 and 900 British nationals in the same position, but more importantly, who were not trafficked as children.
On the specific point of law, that is a crucial point. I get that. A lot of people getting in touch. Chelvan, very short on time here, but maybe you can help us. Who would have funded Shamima Begum's defence?
Well, I'm assuming, and look, it's very important for the record that I haven't investigated.
No, true. That's fair enough.
Issues of legal aid or pro bono, or privately, but I'm not going to say for the record what I know directly what the situation is. But importantly, the other issue, which is very important to be
10 seconds if you can.
Yeah, if she's removed to Bangladesh, she does face a real risk of the death penalty, and we as a state have a duty to ensure that people do not face the death penalty.
Dr. S. Chelvan, Head of Immigration and Public Law, 33 Bedford Chambers, thank you to you.